The Kansas wind carried nothing but dust and broken promises the day Clara Whitmore left her late husband's family farm. She stood at the crossroads, one hand pressed against the gentle swell beneath her traveling dress, the other clutching a worn carpetbag that held everything she owned in this world. Behind her, the Whitmore homestead squatted like a gray toad against the horizon, its windows dark as accusing eyes. "Don't come back," her sister-in-law had spat that morning, crossing herself as if Clara carried some contagion. "Bad luck follows you like a shadow. First Thomas, now this shame you're carrying." Clara had bitten her tongue until it bled rather than remind the woman that Thomas Whitmore had died of consumption, not cursed luck, and that the child growing within her was his last gift to this earth. But frontier folk needed their superstitions more than truth, especially when it gave them license to cast out an extra mouth to feed. The road to Raton Pass stretched before her like a dusty serpent. Clara had heard whispers of opportunity beyond the territorial border, land for the taking, towns hungry for civilized folk. She'd sold her wedding china for coach fare and supplies, keeping only Thomas's boots and gold band tucked deep in her bag. Sentiment was a luxury she couldn't afford, but neither could she bear to leave every trace of him behind. 3 days later, the coach deposited her in a town that barely deserved the name. False-fronted buildings lined a muddy main street, their painted signs already peeling in the harsh sun. The Grand Hotel was neither grand nor much of a hotel, more a collection of rooms above a saloon that reeked of whiskey and unwashed men. Clara stood in the dusty street, her traveling dress drawing stares from miners and cowboys alike. A woman alone was either merchandise or trouble in a place like this, and her obviously pregnant state only added to the curiosity. She kept her chin high, her late husband's derringer hidden in her sleeve, and made her way to the mercantile. "I need a guide," she told the shopkeeper, a thin man with nervous hands. "Someone who knows the territory trails." The man's laugh was dry as jerky. "Ma'am, no decent guide's gonna take a woman in your condition across the Badlands, not with winter coming on. I have money." "Not enough for what you're asking?" He leaned across the counter, voice dropping. "But if you're dead set on this fool's errand, there's one man might take you. Boone Hartley. Keeps to himself up at the old McAllister cabin. Used to guide wagon trains before—" The shopkeeper stopped, shook his head. "Well, before he didn't anymore." Clara found directions grudgingly given and set out on foot toward the cabin. The path wound through scrub pine and red rock, the autumn air sharp with the promise of coming snow. She'd made harder walks in Kansas, but never while carrying a child. By the time she spotted the cabin tucked against a cliff face, her back screamed and her feet had swollen inside her boots. The place looked abandoned. No smoke from the chimney, no horse in the lean-to, but fresh axe marks on the wood pile told a different story. Clara approached carefully, announcing herself from a distance. "Mr. Hartley? I'm told you know these trails." Silence stretched long enough that she wondered if the shopkeeper had played her for a fool. Then the door opened, and a man emerged who looked carved from the same red stone as the cliffs. Boone Hartley was tall in the way of men who'd grown up with room to stretch. His face bore the premature aging of frontier life, sun-weathered skin, lines etched by wind and worry. Dark hair hung past his collar, and a week's worth of beard shadowed his jaw. But it was his eyes that made Clara's breath catch, gray as winter sky and holding the kind of emptiness she recognized from her own mirror. "I don't guide anymore," he said without preamble. "Especially not for women with no business on the trail." Clara had expected this. "I have business in Colorado territory. My husband had kin there." Had. His eyes flicked to her swollen middle. "He's dead then." 3 months passed. Something shifted in his expression. Not sympathy exactly, but a recognition. "Trail's no place for you. Wait for spring. Take the train." "I can't wait." Clara met his gaze steadily. "My husband's family has made it clear I'm not welcome. His brother in Colorado Springs is my only chance for a roof over this child's head. Then wire him for train fare." I did. The message that came back said to make my own way or not come at all. The lie came smooth as butter. There was no brother, no family waiting. Only the hope that somewhere past these mountains lay a place where a widow could disappear and start fresh. Boone studied her for a long moment. Even if I was inclined, and I'm not, winter's coming. Passes could close any day. You'd be risking your life and your child's. We're dead either way, Clara said simply, at least on the trail. We'd be moving towards something instead of away. He turned without a word and went back inside. Clara stood in the dying light, pride warring with desperation. She'd slept in worse places than the street if it came to that. But as she turned to go, Boone reappeared with a tin cup of water. "Drink," he ordered. "Then get yourself back to town before dark. Wolves have been bold this year." Clara accepted the water gratefully, noting how he kept his distance, careful not to let their fingers touch. "Thank you. For water, that's free in these parts. For listening," he grunted, already turning away. "Try Sam Hutchins at the livery. He might know someone fool enough." Clara made it halfway down the path before exhaustion forced her to rest against a boulder. The sun bled red across the mountains, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. She pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the flutter of movement within. "We'll find a way," she whispered. "We always do." The saloon was in full roar by the time she made it back to town. Clara slipped through the lobby of the Grand Hotel, hoping to reach her room unseen, but a commotion near the bar caught her attention. Two cowboys had backed a younger man against the wall, their intentions clear from the ugly laughter and drawn knives. Without thinking, Clara pushed through the crowd. "Leave him be!" The cowboys turned, taking in her dusty dress and swollen figure with incredulous grins. "Well now, boys, looks like we got us a mother hen. I said leave him be." Clara let Thomas's derringer slide into her palm, keeping it low but visible. "I'd hate to ruin your evening over foolishness." The moment stretched taut before one cowboy snorted. "Hell, Joe, let's find entertainment that don't come with a sermon." They melted back into the crowd, and Clara helped the young man to a chair. He was barely more than a boy, with the soft look of someone raised gentle. "Thank you, ma'am. I'm obliged." "Think nothing of it." Clara was already regretting the attention she'd drawn. "You should be more careful where you drink." "Yes, ma'am. My name's Pete Morrison." He glanced around nervously. "You're the lady looking for Boone Hartley." Clara's attention sharpened. "You know him?" "Everyone knows Boone, or knows of him. Used to be the best guide in 3 territories. Could find water in a desert and navigate by stars alone." "What happened?" Pete's face fell. "His wife, Sarah. Prettiest thing you ever saw. Yellow hair like sunshine. They were guiding a wagon train through the northern passes when an early blizzard hit. Boone went to scout ahead, and when he came back..." The boy swallowed. "The whole train was gone. Buried in snow. They found some bodies come spring, but never Sarah. Only thing Boone found was her locket, hanging from a tree branch like someone placed it there deliberate." Clara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. "When was this?" 2 winters past. Boone ain't guided since. Stays up at that cabin, drinks enough for 3 men, and waits." "Waits for what?" Pete shrugged. "Death, maybe. Or Sarah. Some say he still believes she's alive out there." That night, Clara lay in her narrow bed listening to the revelry below. She thought of Boone Hartley's empty eyes, of a woman with sunshine hair lost in the snow, of the desperation that drove people to wait for ghosts. Come morning, she packed her few belongings and walked back to the cabin. This time, smoke rose from the chimney. She found Boone splitting wood, his movements precise and mechanical. "I told you no," he said without looking up. Clara set her carpetbag on a stump and pulled out Thomas's boots and wedding band. "These should cover my passage. The boots are good quality, barely worn. My husband was taken sick before he could break them in proper." Boone paused mid-swing. "I said no. Then I'll wait here until you say yes." Clara sat on the wood pile, arranging her skirts. "I've got nowhere else to be. Woman, you're touched in the head. Perhaps, but I'm also determined. She met his gaze. I know about Sarah. The axe stuck deep in wood with a violent crack. You don't know anything. I know loss. Clara said quietly, I know what it is to search crowds for a face that won't be there. I know the weight of carrying on when stopping would be easier. Boone stood frozen, knuckles white on the axe handle. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Trail's hard enough without emotional complications. I guide, nothing more. I'm not looking for complications. Mr. Hartley, just passage. He yanked the axe free, studied the boots and ring she'd offered. Keep your husband's things. We leave at first light. You bring trouble on yourself. That's your burden to carry. Clara rose carefully, hope flickering in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Boone turned back to his wood. Trail has a way of making folks regret their choices. As Clara made her way back to town to gather supplies, she thought he might be right. But regret was a luxury for those with options. And she'd run clean out of those the day Thomas died. All she had now was forward, into whatever wilderness awaited. The storm struck without mercy 3 days into their journey. Clara had thought she understood winter from her Kansas years, but this mountain blizzard was a different beast entirely, a howling white demon that erased the world beyond arm's reach. Keep moving, Boone's voice barely carried over the wind. He'd tied a rope between their horses, his broad back the only landmark in the swirling chaos. There's shelter ahead. Clara hunched lower in the saddle, her gloved hands frozen to the reins. The baby hadn't moved in hours, and terror clawed at her throat. Was the cold too much? Had she killed her child with this foolish quest? The abandoned cabin materialized from the white like something from a fever dream. Boone had to lift her from the saddle, her legs too numb to function. He half carried her inside while she clutched at consciousness through sheer will. Get those wet clothes off, he ordered, already working to start a fire in the stone hearth. There's blankets in my pack. Clara's fingers fumbled uselessly at her buttons. Pride warred with survival, and survival won. I can't. My hands. Boone cursed under his breath. He turned from the struggling fire, his face carefully blank. Close your eyes. With clinical efficiency, he peeled away her frozen outer garments, wrapped her in thick wool blankets, and returned to the fire without a word. Clara huddled in the corner, teeth chattering so hard she feared they'd break. The baby, she managed. It's not moving. Cold makes everything slow down. Boone didn't look at her. Fire'll warm you both. The flames caught at last, casting dancing shadows on rough-hewn walls. Clara noticed scattered belongings, tin plates, a moldy bedroll, empty whiskey bottles, some previous traveler's last shelter, perhaps. Boone brought their gear inside and tended the horses in the lean-to. When he returned, snow dusted his dark hair white. He pulled a bottle from his saddlebag, took a long drink, then surprised her by offering it. Medicinal purposes, he said gruffly. The whiskey burned, but it lit a small warmth in her belly. As feeling returned to her extremities, so did pain, needles of fire in fingers and toes. But beneath the blanket, a flutter, the baby moved. Thank God, she breathed. Boone was laying out bedrolls near the fire. We'll wait out the storm. Could be hours. Could be days. I'm sorry. You were right. I shouldn't have pushed to leave so late in the season. Sorry doesn't change the weather. He settled against the far wall, rifle across his knees. Get some sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. The fever struck fast, turning her bones to ice while her skin burned. Clara tried to muffle her distress, but delirium loosened her tongue. Thomas, she moaned. Thomas, it hurts. She felt strong hands on her face, checking her temperature. Boone's curse was more prayer than profanity. Through the haze, she heard him moving, felt cold compress on her forehead. Not Thomas, she mumbled. Thomas is dead, buried him in the churchyard. The baby needs a father, but Thomas is in the ground. Hush now. Boone's voice seemed to come from very far away. Save your strength. But the fever had opened gates better left closed. Clara rambled about the consumption that took her husband, the months of watching him fade, the Whitmore family's accusations that she'd brought curse to their bloodline. "Should have died instead," she muttered. "Good wives die with their husbands. Sarah knew. Sarah followed him into the snow." The mention of his wife's name made Boone go rigid. He'd been bathing Clara's face with snow-cooled water, but now his hand stilled. "Don't speak of her." His voice was dangerous quiet. "You don't know anything about Sarah?" Clara's eyes opened, fever-bright in the firelight. "She loved you enough to let go. Stop." But delirium had its own momentum. "The tree. She left it on the tree so you'd know, so you'd stop searching." Boone recoiled as if slapped. His hand went reflexively to his chest, where beneath his shirt hung a silver locket on a leather cord. Sarah's locket, the only trace of her the mountains had given back. He stared at the delirious woman before him, this stranger who spoke impossible things. How could she know about the tree, about how he'd found the locket hung carefully on a branch, too deliberate to be chance? Clara's ramblings dissolved into wordless moans. Boone forced himself to continue his ministrations, but his hands shook. He'd lived 2 years with questions that had no answers, and now this half-dead widow spoke as if she'd been there. The fever broke near dawn. Clara woke to find herself still wrapped in blankets, still clothed beneath them, with Boone maintaining careful distance across the cabin. He looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept. "The storm?" she asked weakly. "Passing. We'll move when you're stronger." Clara tried to sit up, winced. Every muscle screamed complaint. "Did I speak much? In the fever?" "Some." His voice gave nothing away. "You called for your husband." Memory was fragments and shadow, but something in his closed expression made her uneasy. "I hope I said nothing to offend." Boone was already packing gear with sharp, efficient movements. "Trail makes everyone say things best forgotten." They left the cabin at midday, picking their way through fresh snow. The world had been remade in white, beautiful and treacherous. Boone led them down into a sheltered valley where the drifts were manageable. They were setting camp that evening when the old Indian appeared. He materialized from the trees like smoke, ancient face creased by weather and time. Boone's hand went to his rifle, but the old man raised empty palms. "No harm," he said in accented English. "Come to warn." Boone relaxed fractionally. "Warm yourself at our fire, grandfather." The old man settled cross-legged near the flames, accepting Clara's offered coffee with dignified thanks. His dark eyes studied her with uncomfortable intensity. "You travel dangerous path," he said finally. "Men hunt these trails, bad men who take what they want." "Raiders?" Boone asked. "Some call them that. They look for easy prey, travelers caught by weather, wagon trains too small to defend." The old man's gaze never left Clara. "They like women, especially women with yellow hair, like sun." Clara touched her own dark hair self-consciously, but Boone had gone very still. "When?" he asked. "When did they take women?" "2 winters past, maybe more. Time runs different in mountains." The old man rose with effort. "I tell you what I tell all. Travel fast, travel quiet. The mountains keep their secrets, but men's greed makes them careless." He melted back into the forest before they could question further. Clara found herself shivering despite the fire's warmth. "You think he meant—" she began. "No." Boone's voice was flat. "Sarah's dead. The old man spoke of raiders, nothing more. But that night he insisted on teaching her to shoot properly, not just the small derringer, but his spare rifle, how to lead a target, how to breathe, how to squeeze rather than pull." "Why now?" Clara asked as she sighted down the barrel at a distant tree. "Because depending on others gets you killed out here." He adjusted her stance with impersonal hands. Again. She fired, the recoil driving into her shoulder. The shot went wide, but closer than before. Better, again. They practiced until her arms ached and her ears rang. Boone was a demanding teacher, accepting nothing less than improvement with each attempt. "I'm not planning to fight a war," Clara protested. Neither was Sarah. The name slipped out before he could catch it. Boone's jaw tightened. Just learn to shoot straight. That night, Clara noticed he'd moved his bedroll closer to hers. Not improper close, but within arm's reach. She lay watching stars through the pine branches, one hand on her swollen belly, wondering what drove a man to teach shooting to a pregnant widow he barely tolerated. The baby stirred, and she hummed softly, an old lullaby her mother had sung, across the dying fire. She saw Boone's eyes gleam in the darkness, watching, but when she looked directly, he'd turned away, the silver locket catching moonlight at his throat. The night wind howled like a living thing through the canyon walls. Clara woke to find Boone sitting upright, staring at something in his hands. The dying firelight revealed an old map, its edges brown with age and what looked disturbingly like dried blood. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. He didn't startle. Boone never startled, but his shoulders tensed. "Winds picked up, checking our route." Clara sat up carefully, wrapping her blanket tighter. The baby pressed hard against her ribs, restless. "That doesn't look like any trail map." "It's not." He seemed to wrestle with himself before continuing. "It's Sarah's. She drew it during our last journey, marking water sources, shelter spots, found it with her locket." The pain in his voice was raw as an open wound. Clara wanted to reach out but knew better. "Tell me about her." "Why?" The word came harsh. "Because carrying grief alone makes it heavier." Boone stared at the map for so long Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she wasn't meant for this life. Came from back east, Philadelphia. Her father brought her west for his health. Died on the trail. I was guiding their wagon train. He traced a finger along the map's faded lines. Should have sent her back. She was too fine for frontier life, too delicate. But she had this way of looking at the mountains like they were cathedral windows. Said she could hear God better in the silence. You loved her enough to know better, but I was selfish." His laugh was bitter. "Thought I could keep her safe. Built a house in Denver, tried to give her civilization, but the mountains called us both back. One last trip," she said, "one last guide job before settling down proper." Clara waited, sensing the weight of what came next. Wagon train full of settlers heading for Oregon Territory. Good people, families with children, hopes of new land. Sarah charmed them all, helped with births and sickness, made the hard days easier. Boone's voice dropped. "Storm came from nowhere. I rode ahead to find shelter, mark a path. When I came back," his hand clenched on the map. "Nothing. Like the earth swallowed them whole. Searched for days, found bodies when snow melted. But not Sarah. Never Sarah. Just her locket, hanging from a pine branch with this map tucked behind it. Maybe she survived." "No." The word cut sharp. "I know dead. Seen enough of it. But sometimes," he shook his head. "Fool thoughts." They sat in silence, broken only by wind and fire pop. "Finally," Clara asked. "What fool thoughts?" Boone looked at her then, really looked, as if seeing past her swollen figure to something else. "That she's out there, that someone took her, that she left the locket as a sign." He laughed, short and harsh. "Man can go mad thinking such things. Or stay sane," Clara offered gently. "Hope isn't madness. Mr. Hartley, it's survival." He stood abruptly, tucking the map away. "Get some sleep. Long day tomorrow." But Clara lay wakeful, disturbed by more than wind. She'd dreamed lately, strange dreams where a woman with sunshine hair whispered urgent words she couldn't quite catch. Pregnancy did odd things to the mind, she told herself. Nothing more. Morning brought them to the abandoned way station, its log walls peppered with bullet holes. The scene inside was worse. Overturned furniture, dark stains on the floorboards, signs of violence barely aged. "Stay back," Boone ordered. But Clara had already seen. In the corner, a figure huddled beneath moth-eaten blankets. Young, male, barely breathing. Blood crusted his shirt, and fever burned in his sunken eyes. "Please," he croaked. "Water." Clara moved despite Boone's warning, her healer's instincts overriding caution. She knelt awkwardly, holding her canteen to cracked lips. "Easy now," she soothed. "What happened here?" "Raiders." The boy, for he was hardly more than that, whispered. "Came 3 days back. Took everything. Everyone." Boone crouched beside them, tension radiating from every line. "How many? Which direction?" 8, maybe 10, headed north toward the old mining camps." The boy's eyes fixed on Clara with desperate intensity. "They took her. The woman in the yellow dress. Said she'd fetch good price in Mexico." Clara felt Boone go rigid beside her. "What woman?" "Don't know her name. Traveling with missionaries. Pretty thing. Yellow hair like corn silk." The boy coughed, specks of blood on his lips. "They killed the men, took her and 2 others. Heard them laughing about breaking her spirit." Boone was on his feet, pacing like a caged wolf. Clara continued tending the boy, though she knew it was hopeless. The wound had festered too long. "How long ago?" Boone demanded. 3 days, maybe 4. Time's fuzzy." The boy gripped Clara's hand with surprising strength. "Don't let them take you too, ma'am. They got particular tastes." Within the hour, the boy breathed his last. They buried him in the station's small cemetery, adding another wooden cross to the collection. Boone said the words, though his mind was clearly elsewhere. "We're changing route," he announced when they'd finished. "There's another pass, longer but safer." "You want to go after them?" Clara observed. "What I want doesn't matter. My job is getting you to Colorado Springs alive." But she saw the way his hand kept moving to the locket, the way his eyes tracked north. "What if it's her?" "It's not." The words came too quick, too sharp. "Sarah's dead." "But if—" "Enough!" He rounded on her, gray eyes wild. "You think I haven't chased every rumor, every possibility? You think I haven't torn these mountains apart looking? Sarah is gone. Some other woman with yellow hair doesn't change that." Clara stepped back from his vehemence, one hand protective over her belly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "No, I'm sorry." Boone scrubbed a hand over his face, suddenly looking older than his years. "This place, these memories, they make a man forget himself." They made camp early that night, the tension between them thick as smoke. Clara prepared a simple meal while Boone scouted the perimeter, rifle in hand. When he returned, she'd set aside a portion for him, a small peace offering. "Thank you," he said quietly. "We're partners on this trail. Mr. Hartley. That means looking out for each other." He studied her in the firelight. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" The question surprised her. "Should I be?" Most women would be. Alone with a strange man. Middle of nowhere. Man who gets wild-eyed at mention of his dead wife. Clara considered her answer carefully. "I've known cruel men. Mr. Hartley. They have a look about them. Emptiness where soul should be. You're not empty. You're overfull. Grief and guilt and love with nowhere to go. That doesn't frighten me." "It should," he said softly. "Perhaps, but fear's a luxury I can't afford." She touched her belly. "This child needs me brave." Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the walls he'd built. "Thomas was a lucky man. He was a good man," Clara corrected. "Lucky had nothing to do with it." They sat in companionable silence, the fire crackling between them. "Finally," Boone asked, "what will you really do in Colorado Springs? Truth this time." Clara smiled ruefully. "I don't know. Find work. Maybe seamstress, laundress. Whatever keeps a roof over our heads. Start fresh where no one knows our story." Hard life for a woman alone. Hard life regardless. But we choose our hard, don't we? Boone pulled out Sarah's map again, studying it by firelight. She used to say something similar. Said the mountains were hard but honest. Never pretended to be anything but what they were. Wise woman. Too wise for her own good. He folded the map carefully. "There's something else. Something I never told anyone." Clara waited, sensing the weight of confession. "The locket, when I found it, there was snow on the branch above, but none on the locket itself, like someone had just placed it there. And her tracks, He shook his head. I followed them far as I could. They didn't wander like someone lost. They moved with purpose, toward the northern passes. You think she left willingly? I think something happened out there I don't understand. And maybe that's worse than knowing she's dead. He met Clara's eyes across the fire. Because if she chose to leave, if she let me believe she was dead, then she had reasons, Clara said gently. Reasons that seemed right to her in that moment. That's not betrayal. Mr. Hartley, that's survival. He laughed, short and bitter. You sound like her. I sound like a woman who's learned that sometimes living requires choices that look like dying. The wind picked up again, stirring sparks from their fire. Somewhere in the darkness, a wolf howled, answered by another. Boone automatically moved closer to Clara's side of the fire, protective instinct overriding propriety. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we reach the high passes. It'll be hard going. But Clara noticed he kept the map out, tracing its paths by memory and moonlight, searching for answers in lines drawn by a ghost's hand. Clara's eyes opened to gray dawn light and the glint of silver at her throat. Her hand flew to her neck, fingers finding the delicate chain of a locket that hadn't been there when she'd fallen asleep. Sarah's locket. She sat up so fast the world spun. Boone knelt by the fire, his back to her, feeding twigs to the flames. Everything about his posture seemed normal, but Clara knew better. The careful distance he maintained, the rigid set of his shoulders. He knew what he'd done. Mr. Hartley, her voice came out steadier than she felt. He turned slowly, and she saw the exact moment he registered the locket. Color drained from his weathered face. His eyes went wide, then narrow, then dead as winter stone. Take it off. The words came low. Dangerous. Clara's fingers fumbled with the clasp. I don't understand. How did... Take it off! He crossed the space between them in 2 strides. Reaching for the chain, Clara jerked back. Don't touch me! They froze, inches apart, breathing hard. This close. She could see the wildness in his eyes, the barely leashed pain that threatened to tear him apart. I didn't mean to, he said hoarsely. Last night, you were cold, shivering in your sleep. I was trying to add another blanket, and you rolled toward me. Your hair in the firelight, the way you murmured. His voice broke. For a moment, I forgot I wasn't her. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him everything. Give it back, please. Clara unclasped the locket carefully, but instead of handing it over immediately, she looked at it properly for the first time. Silver work so fine it seemed spun rather than forged, with Sarah engraved in delicate script. Inside, a miniature portrait of Boone, younger and smiling in a way she'd never seen. She loved you very much, Clara said softly. Boone snatched the locket from her palm, clutching it like a lifeline. Don't what? Don't see you as human? Don't understand that grief makes us do strange things? Don't make excuses for me. He backed away, fumbling to fasten the chain around his own neck. I had no right, no reason except my own weakness. You put a necklace on me while I slept. Mr. Hartley, you didn't compromise my virtue. Clara stood carefully, aware of the trembling in her legs. Though I'd appreciate it not happening again. It won't. We should move on. Find another guide in the next town. No. He stared at her. I just proved I can't be trusted. You just proved you're human. Clara began rolling her bedding with sharp, angry movements. You think I don't understand? You think I don't sometimes turn to speak to Thomas, forgetting he won't answer? You think I don't wake reaching for him? That's different. How? She rounded on him. Because your loss is older? Because she might still be alive somewhere. Pain is pain, Mr. Hartley, and lonely is lonely. I said you're not her. The words exploded from him like gunshot. The silence that followed was deafening. Clara felt each word like a physical blow, but she lifted her chin, meeting his anguished gaze. No, she said quietly. I'm not her. I'm not Sarah with her sunshine hair and delicate ways. I'm Clara, plain, practical Clara who's too stubborn to die and too foolish to stop hoping. And if that disappoints you, Mr. Hartley, then perhaps you should examine why you agreed to guide me in the first place. She grabbed her pack and started down the trail, not caring if he followed. Tears burned her eyes, but she'd be damned if she'd let them fall. Behind her, she heard him curse. Then the sound of him breaking camp. He caught up within a mile, leading both horses. "You're going the wrong direction. Then correct my course and let's be done with it." They walked in bitter silence through the morning. The trail wound higher, threading between towering pines and granite faces. Clara's back ached, her feet swelled, and the baby seemed determined to pummel her from within. But she'd eat dirt before complaining. It was past noon when she stumbled. The trail edge crumbled beneath her boot, and suddenly she was sliding, scrabbling for purchase on loose stone. Her pack weight pulled her toward the drop, not far enough to kill, but far enough to maim. Strong hands caught her arms, hauling her back to solid ground. Boone held her against his chest, both of them breathing hard. "You little fool," he said against her hair. "You'll kill yourself out of pride. Better than dying of pity." But she didn't pull away. Couldn't, with her legs shaking and her heart hammering. "I don't pity you." "No? Then what do you call that display this morning?" He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, madness. Missing someone so much you forget they're gone. Wanting so badly to pretend, just for a moment, that love didn't end. Clara turned in his arms to look up at him, this close. She could see the lines grief had carved, the hollow places where hope used to live. "It doesn't end," she said. "It just changes shape." Something shifted in his expression. His hand came up, almost touching her face before catching himself. "We should keep moving." But neither of them moved. The moment stretched, fragile as spun glass. Clara was acutely aware of his warmth, the solid strength of him, the way his breath stirred her hair. "Clara," her name on his lips sounded like confession. "Don't." She stepped back, breaking the spell. "Don't say whatever you're thinking. We're both too raw, too lonely. It wouldn't be real." He laughed, hollow. "Real. As if I'd recognize real anymore." They made camp that night beside a small spring, the water sweet with snowmelt. Clara prepared their meal in silence, hyper-aware of every movement, every glance. The locket gleamed at Boone's throat, catching firelight like an accusation. "I need to tell you something," he said suddenly. "About last night, about why I—" "You don't owe me explanations." "Maybe not, but I need to say it." He stared into the fire. "You were crying in your sleep, calling for Thomas, begging him not to leave, and your hand kept going to your throat, like you were reaching for something that wasn't there." Clara's hand went unconsciously to her neck. She'd given Thomas's mother his wedding ring to bury with him, but she'd kept meaning to buy a chain for it, to wear it close. "I thought—" Boone struggled with the words. "I thought if you had something to hold, maybe the dreams would ease. Sarah always said the locket helped her feel less alone when I was scouting ahead. It was wrong of me, using her memory to comfort another woman. Wrong to both of you. Or kind," Clara offered. "Maybe it was just kind." He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw the war in him, old loyalty against new feeling, grief against hope, death against life. "I'm not ready," he said roughly. "May never be ready." "I'm not asking you to be." "Aren't you?" His smile was sad. "Every time you look at me with those knowing eyes, every time you speak of moving forward, you're asking—" Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "That's rather presumptuous. Mr. Hartley." "Is it?" He leaned forward. "Tell me you don't feel it. This pull between us. Tell me you don't wonder what would happen if we stopped fighting it. What I feel doesn't matter. I'm a pregnant widow heading to an uncertain future. You're a man haunted by ghosts. Neither of us is in a position to wonder about anything beyond surviving the next mile." "Practical, Clara," he murmured. "Always so practical. But I saw your face when you wore the locket. Just for a moment. You let yourself imagine being loved like that. The truth of it stung. She had imagined, in that drowsy moment between sleep and waking, what it would be like to be treasured so completely that a man couldn't let go even after death. We all imagine impossible things, she said. Then we wake up. And if I don't want to wake up, the raw need in his voice undid her. Then you're not the man I need you to be, because I can't afford dreams. Boone, this child needs reality. Food, shelter, safety. Not a man who sees another woman every time he looks at me. He flinched as if slapped. You're right. I usually am. Despite everything. That pulled a small smile from him. Sarah used to say the same thing. Then she was a wise woman. She was. He touched the locket briefly. But maybe not wise enough to choose a better man. Clara studied him across the fire. Or maybe she was wise enough to choose the man she loved. Knowing love's never perfect or easy or convenient. Maybe she'd rather have a few years with you than a lifetime with someone safer. You didn't know her. No, but I know what it is to love someone through their darkness. Thomas wasn't easy either. The consumption made him angry, bitter sometimes. He said things meant to drive me away, to spare me watching him die. But love isn't about easy, mister. Hartley. It's about choosing to stay. Boone was quiet for a long moment. Then, she would have liked you. I think I would have liked her too. They sat in companionable silence, the fire burning low between them. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl called, mournful and sweet. Clara pulled her shawl closer, feeling the baby shift and settle within her. Tomorrow we'll reach the mining camps, Boone said eventually. After that, 2 days to Colorado Springs, 3 at most. The reminder of their journey's end sat heavy between them. Soon they'd part ways. This strange intimacy dissolved by civilization and separate paths. Then we'd best get some rest, Clara said, though sleep felt impossible. As she settled into her bedroll, she heard Boone speak so softly she almost missed it. I'll miss you. Clara Whitmore, God help me, I'll miss you. She closed her eyes tight, pretending not to hear, pretending her heart didn't echo the same impossible truth. The change came gradually, like spring melt, so slow you barely noticed until suddenly the world was different. They spoke less but communicated more, moving in practiced rhythm as if they'd traveled together for years rather than days. Clara learned to read Boone's silences, the watchful quiet that meant danger, the peaceful stillness of morning coffee, the weighted hush when memories pressed close. He learned her ways too, how she hummed when content, pressed her lower back when the baby sat heavy, touched her wedding ring when Thomas ghosted through her thoughts. The mining camp sprawled below them like a wound on the mountainside, all mud and machinery and men drunk on dreams of gold. Clara had never seen such concentrated desperation. Hollow-eyed prospectors, painted women with hard smiles, merchants charging criminal prices for basic goods. Stay close, Boone murmured, his hand hovering near her elbow. And pull your shawl up, hide your condition best you can. But there was no hiding pregnancy from determined eyes. The catcalls started before they'd gone 10 steps down the main street. Well now, what have we here? A ripe little peach ready for picking. Leave off. Boys, can't you see she's spoken for? Don't see no husband, just some saddle tramp playing protector. Boone's jaw tightened, but Clara touched his arm. Ignore them. We need supplies. Nothing more. The general store was cramped and dim, reeking of tobacco and unwashed bodies. While Boone negotiated for provisions, Clara examined bolts of cloth, letting her fingers remember the seamstress work that might keep them fed in Colorado Springs. You've got good hands, a woman observed. Steady? Sure. Clara turned to find a girl, for she couldn't be more than 17, with knowing eyes and a painted face. Despite the rouge and revealing dress, something about her spoke of better origins. Thank you, Clara said carefully. You heading to the Springs? Setting up shop? Perhaps, if there's need for seamstress work. The girl laughed, bitter as burnt coffee. Oh, there's need. Good women are scarce. and those that can make them look respectable are gold. She glanced at Clara's belly. Though you might wait till after that one comes. Town ladies don't much like reminders of what their husbands get up to. Before Clara could respond, Boone appeared at her elbow. We're leaving. Outside. He steered her toward the edge of town where they'd left the horses. That woman was trying to help. In her way. She's a... He stopped himself. You shouldn't associate with such people. Clara pulled free of his grip. Such people? You mean women doing what they must to survive? There, but for the grace of God. Mr. Hartley. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? She faced him, anger rising. You think I'm so different? A widow with a child? No family, no prospects. One bad turn and I could be painting my face too. Don't say that. His voice was fierce. You're nothing like... Like what? Like damaged goods? Used merchandise? The words tasted bitter. Because that's what I am, isn't it? What we both are. Walking wounded, pretending we're whole. Something broke in his expression. Before Clara could react, he'd pulled her into the shadow between buildings, his hands framing her face. You're not damaged, he said roughly. You're the strongest woman I've known. You're brave and stubborn and so beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. You're nothing like... He caught himself again. Nothing like Sarah. Clara's voice came soft. It's all right to say her name, to admit I'm different. You are different. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Sarah was morning, all light and promise. Your evening, deeper, more complex, the kind of beauty that grows rather than fades. Boone. He kissed her then, desperate and hungry, weeks of tension breaking like a dam. Clara's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed warnings. This was madness, dangerous. Too much too fast. The baby kicked hard, reminding them both of reality. They broke apart, breathing ragged. I'm sorry, Boone started. Don't! Clara pressed fingers to her lips, still feeling the burn of his. Don't apologize. Just give me time to think. They left town in loaded silence, camping that night beside a stream running high with snowmelt. Clara couldn't settle, pacing the small clearing while Boone tended the horses. Her lips still tingled, her skin still burned where he'd touched her. And beneath it all, guilt twisted like a knife. You're thinking too loud, Boone said finally. How can you be so calm? I'm not. He joined her by the water's edge. I'm terrified. Of what? Of wanting you. Of betraying Sarah's memory. Of losing someone else. He stopped short. Love? The word hung between them like a challenge. Care for. He amended carefully. I've no right to more. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Clara's laugh was shaky. Here I thought I was the practical one. You are. That's why you'll leave me in Colorado Springs and never look back. She turned to study his profile in the moonlight. Is that what you want? What I want hasn't mattered since Sarah died. He skipped a stone across the water. What I need is to know you're safe. You and the baby both. Set up somewhere with a real roof, real walls. Maybe find a good man who... Stop! The word came sharp. Don't you dare stand there planning my future like I'm some package to be delivered and forgotten. That's not... Isn't it? Clara moved closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. Tell me you won't wonder. Every day, every night, whether the baby came safe, whether we're fed, warm, happy. Tell me you'll just ride away and never look back. He couldn't. She saw it in his face. The war between desire and duty. Past and future. I loved my husband, Clara said softly. Loved him true and deep. When he died, I thought my heart went with him. But hearts are strange things. Boone, they grow back different, not smaller. Room enough for memory and possibility both. Clara, I'm not asking for promises. Not asking you to forget her or replace her or pretend the past doesn't matter. I'm just saying. She touched his face, gentle as she'd touched the baby. I'm saying that maybe two broken people might make something whole, eventually, when you're ready. He caught her hand, pressed it flat against his chest, where she could feel his heartbeat, wild and strong. What if I'm never ready? What if I'm too damaged, too lost in what was to see what could be? Then I'll have known what it was to be desired by a good man, even briefly. That's more than many women get. He made a sound somewhere between laugh and sob. You deserve so much more. I deserve what I choose, and I choose. The words died as pain lanced through her middle, sharp enough to steal breath. Clara doubled over, clutching her belly. What's wrong? Boone caught her as her knees buckled. The baby. It's too early. Another cramp, stronger. Oh, God. He swept her into his arms, carrying her back to camp. Hold on. Just hold on. Through the night, he tended her with gentle hands and desperate prayers. Boiled water for tea, he claimed, would help. Massaged her back when the pains came. Held her when she cried from fear as much as hurt. Don't let me lose this baby, she begged. It's all I have left of him. You won't. You're strong, remember? Both of you. By dawn, the pains had eased to normal discomfort. The baby moved. Proof of life that made them both weak with relief. Thank you, Clara whispered, exhausted. Boone smoothed damp hair from her forehead. No need for thanks. There's every need. She caught his hand. You could have left, found another guide, sent help. Easier than nursing a woman who might birth too early. Nothing about you has been easy. Clara Whitmore. His smile was tender. Why start now? She laughed despite everything. Fair point. They rested that day, Boone refusing to move until he was certain she was strong enough. He fished the stream, prepared simple meals, even attempted to wash her spare dress, a disaster that left them both laughing at the results. Sarah tried to teach me, he admitted, wringing out the garment. Said a man should know basic household things, but I was too stubborn to learn. Tell me more about her. Happy things. So he did, sharing memories worn smooth as river stones. Sarah's attempt at frontier cooking, her delight in wildflowers, the way she'd sing to horses to calm them. With each story, Clara saw him relax, as if speaking joy could resurrect it. She sounds wonderful, Clara said when he fell quiet. She was, and she'd be furious with me for mourning so long. He met her eyes. She believed in living, fully and freely. Said every day above ground was a gift to be unwrapped. Wise woman. Yes. He moved closer. Decision in every line. Clara, when we reach Colorado Springs, don't. She pressed fingers to his lips. No plans, remember? Let's just be here, now, for whatever time we have. He kissed her fingers, then her palm, then drew her carefully against him. They sat wrapped together, watching stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring what it brought, but tonight they had this warmth and closeness and the fragile hope of healing hearts. The baby stirred between them, and Boone's hand joined Clara's on her belly, protective and wondering. Hello, little one, he murmured. Your mama's going to teach you to be brave. Maybe I'll be around to watch you grow. Clara's eyes burned with tears she didn't let fall. Maybe you will. They stayed like that until the fire died to embers, neither willing to break the spell of possibility. Both knowing morning would come too soon. The settlement appeared through morning mist, like something from a fever dream. A handful of buildings clinging to the mountainside. Smoke rising from chimneys that should have promised warmth and welcome. Instead, Clara felt ice crawl down her spine. Something's wrong, she said. Boone was already reaching for his rifle. Stay back! But staying back became impossible when they saw the bodies. 3 men laid out in the dirt, covered with blankets that didn't quite hide the violence of their ends. Women clustered near the church, children clinging to their skirts, and standing guard, a group of armed men who looked like they'd crawled from hell's own furnace. Raiders, Boone breathed. The same ones the old Indian warned about. Clara's hand went to her belly, protective instinct flaring, but her eyes caught on something else. A figure sitting apart from the others, wrists bound, golden hair matted with dirt and worse. The woman raised her head, and even from a distance, Clara could see the emptiness in her eyes, "Dear God," she whispered. "That poor woman." Boone had gone rigid beside her. His face drained of color as he stared at the captive. "No, it can't be. Boone?" But he was already moving, spurring his horse forward with reckless abandon. Clara followed, heart hammering, as he rode straight into the settlement. "Hold there!" One of the raiders raised a gun. "This ain't your concern, stranger." Boone ignored him, swinging from his saddle and striding toward the bound woman. Up close, Clara could see why he'd reacted so strongly. The woman's features, beneath dirt and bruises, held an echo of Sarah's delicate beauty. But her eyes, those held nothing at all. "Sarah!" Boone's voice cracked like breaking glass. The woman didn't respond, didn't even blink. One of the raiders laughed, ugly and knowing. "That what she told you her name was? Hell, she's told us a dozen different names. Mine's gone, if she ever had one. We found her wandering the mountains, living like an animal." Boone knelt before her, hands shaking as he reached for her face. "Sarah, it's me. It's Boone. I've searched everywhere." The woman jerked back from his touch, whimpering like a wounded animal. Nothing in her expression suggested recognition. "She ain't your Sarah, friend," another raider said, almost gently. "Whatever she was before, the mountains took it. We're doing her a kindness, really. Gonna take her somewhere safe, somewhere they know how to handle broken minds." "You're selling her." Clara's voice cut sharp. She'd dismounted, standing straight despite her ungainly figure. "Don't pretty it up with the lies." The leader's eyes narrowed. "And what's a pregnant woman doing out here? Your man drag you along on some fool's errand?" "My business is my own." Clara moved closer to Boone, who remained frozen before the bound woman. "How much?" "How much for what?" "For her. You said you're selling her. Name your price." The men exchanged glances, grins spreading like disease. "Well now, that depends. What are you offering?" Clara pulled Thomas's gold ring from her pack. "This, and these boots, good leather, barely worn." "Clara, no!" Boone's voice was strangled. "You can't." "I can, and I will." She met the leader's eyes steadily. "That's twice what you'd get from any brothel for a woman whose mind is gone. Take it or leave it." The negotiation was swift, ugly. But when it ended, the woman's bonds were cut and she sat free, rubbing her wrists with mechanical movements. "She's yours," the leader said. "Though what you plan to do with her, that's our concern." Clara helped the woman stand. Up close, the resemblance to Sarah was less pronounced, the features similar but not identical, like a reflection in disturbed water. "Can you walk?" The woman nodded vaguely, allowing herself to be led. Boone followed like a man in a trance, unable to look away from this ghost who wore his wife's face. They made camp well away from the settlement, near a clear stream. Clara set about cleaning the woman's wounds while Boone sat apart, the war in him visible in every rigid line. "It's not her," he said finally. "The eyes are wrong, the hands. She's just similar." "I know." Clara worked gently, washing away layers of dirt and dried blood. The woman submitted passively, occasionally flinching but never speaking. "But you had to be sure." "Did I?" His laugh was bitter. "Or did I just need to torture myself again, chase another ghost?" The woman made a sound, not quite words, more like a wounded bird. Clara smoothed her hair, humming softly, and gradually the tension eased from the thin shoulders. "She's been through hell," Clara observed. "Whatever her story, whoever she was, that's gone now. Like Sarah." "Yes." They tended her in shared silence, fed her small bites of food, wrapped her in clean blankets, treated her as gently as they would a wild thing learning trust. When exhaustion finally took her, she curled between them like a child, one hand clutching Clara's skirt. "Why did you do it?" Boone asked in the darkness. "Give up your husband's ring for a stranger." "Because she needed help, because you needed to know, because—" Clara struggled for words. "Because women survive things that would break men, and we deserve whatever small mercies we can find." "Even false ones? Even lies that she might be someone she's not?" especially then. Clara found his hand across the sleeping woman. Hope doesn't have to be true to be worth having. His fingers tightened on hers. I thought it was her. For one moment, I thought... I know. I'm losing my mind. Clara, seeing her in every face, hearing her in the wind. This woman looks nothing like her. Not really. But I made her into Sarah because I needed... His voice broke. You needed to say goodbye. Clara shifted carefully, mindful of the sleeping woman. You never got to, did you? She just vanished, left you with questions instead of closure. Yes, then maybe this is gift enough, a chance to save someone, even if it's not her, a chance to let go. Through the night, they kept vigil. The woman woke several times, disoriented and fearful, but Clara's humming and Boone's steady presence seemed to calm her. By morning, she was sitting up, accepting water with something almost like a smile. We'll take her to Colorado Springs. Clara decided, there's bound to be a church or charity that can help her. Boone nodded, but his eyes held new pain. And then we see what comes next. The woman rode with Clara, arms wrapped around her swollen middle like she was protecting the baby. Sometimes she hummed, tuneless, wandering melodies that made Boone flinch, but slowly, mile by mile, his shoulders began to ease. She's not Sarah, he said that evening, wonder in his voice. I can see it now, really see it. She's just a lost woman who needs help. Yes, I've been chasing ghosts so long I forgot what real people look like. Clara smiled sadly. We all chase ghosts. Boone, the trick is knowing when to stop running. He moved closer to her, their shoulders touching. The woman dozed against Clara's other side, peaceful for the first time since they'd found her. What if I'm ready to stop? His voice came soft. What if I want something real, something present instead of past? Then you take it slow, day by day. No rushing, no forcing, just being. With you? Clara's heart stuttered. If that's what you choose. And if you're what I choose, you and this baby and whatever future we can build from broken pieces. She turned to meet his eyes. Then we build it together. But not because you're replacing what you lost. Because you're choosing what you found. Boone cupped her face with gentle hands. I found you, Clara Whitmore. Stubborn, brave, beautiful you. Is that enough? It's everything, she whispered. He kissed her then, soft and sure, while the lost woman slept between them and stars emerged in the darkening sky. It wasn't the passion of before. This was deeper, calmer, a promise rather than a plea. When they parted, Clara saw peace in his eyes for the first time. The ghost of Sarah would always be there, part of who he was, but it no longer owned him. I love you, he said simply. Not because you remind me of her, but because you showed me how to live again. Clara's eyes filled. I love you too. God help us both. They held each other in the firelight, the rescued woman safe between them. And for the first time since their journey began, the future seemed possible, complicated, uncertain, but possible, and that was enough. The gunshots cracked through the afternoon air like thunder. Clara felt Boone shove her behind a boulder before she even registered the danger. The rescued woman crouched beside her, eyes wide but oddly calm, as if violence was just another weather pattern to endure. Stay down. Boone had his rifle ready, scanning the ridge above. How many did you see? 3, maybe 4. Clara's derringer was already in her hand, the lessons he'd taught her flooding back, coming from the North Trail. The raiders from the settlement, they'd been followed. Should have known they wouldn't let us go easy. Boone muttered. Another shot sparked off the rocks. Clara, when I start returning fire, you take her and run for that grove. Don't stop. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. This isn't a discussion. No, it's not. Clara met his eyes steady. We stand together or not at all. Something shifted in his expression, frustration giving way to fierce pride. Stubborn woman. You knew what you were choosing. A rider appeared on the ridge, rifle raised. Clara didn't think, just aimed and fired as Boone had taught her. The man cursed, clutching his shoulder, and tumbled from his horse. Good shot. Boone was already sighting another target. But that'll make them madder. The firefight was chaos. Shots echoing off canyon walls. Horses screaming. Men shouting position calls. Clara lost count of her shots, focused only on protecting their small shelter. The rescued woman pressed close, whimpering softly. Then Boone grunted, hand going to his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. "No!" Clara caught him as he swayed. The wound was high, clean through the meat of his shoulder, but blood flowed steady. "Keep shooting," he gritted out. "I'm fine. You're shot. I've had worse. Clara, behind you!" She spun, fired at a raider trying to flank them. The man dove for cover. How many bullets did she have left? Not enough. Never enough. "Can you ride?" she asked Boone. "If I have to. Then we run. Now." It was madness. A wounded man, a pregnant woman, and a damaged girl trying to outrun armed killers. But staying meant death. Clara helped Boone to his horse, blood slicking her hands. The woman climbed up behind her without prompting. They rode hard into the gathering dusk, shots following but falling short. Boone swayed in his saddle, face gray with pain, but he kept pace. Clara guided them off the main trail, following deer paths and stream beds. Every trick he'd taught her. Miles passed in desperate flight before Boone finally slumped forward. Need to stop." Clara found a cut-bank shelter, barely more than a hollow in the hillside. She eased Boone down, horrified at how much blood soaked his shirt. "Let me see. Just needs binding." "Stop talking." Clara tore strips from her petticoat with shaking hands. The wound was bad, not immediately fatal, but bad enough. She'd seen Thomas tend injured farmhands, had helped when extra hands were needed, but this, "You have to cauterize it," Boone said through clenched teeth. "Stop the bleeding." "I don't." "You do. Knife blade in the fire. Quick and clean." He caught her hand. "You can do this. You're the strongest woman I know." Clara built a small fire with trembling fingers, heating his knife blade till it glowed. The rescued woman helped, holding Boone steady with surprising strength. "I'm sorry," Clara whispered. "Just do it." The smell made her stomach revolt. Boone's muffled scream tore her heart, but the bleeding slowed, stopped. She bound the wound tight, packed it with what healing herbs they had. "Still with me?" she asked softly. "Takes more than one bullet to kill a Hartley." But his attempt at a smile was weak. Through the night, Clara kept watch. The woman helped, taking turns so Clara could doze fitfully. Boone burned with fever, muttering names: Sarah, Clara, others she didn't know. Men from his past, ghosts that haunted still. "Don't leave me," he said once, clear as day. "Either of you, please don't leave." "Never," Clara promised, not knowing which woman he spoke to, not caring. "We're here. We're staying." Dawn brought improvement. Boone's fever broke, leaving him weak but lucid. The woman had found berries and roots, offering them shyly. "Thank you." Clara told her. "What should we call you?" The woman tilted her head, considering. Then, in a voice rusty from disuse, "Mary, I think I was Mary." It was the first words she'd spoken. Boone stared, then laughed, painful but real. "Mary it is." He struggled to sit up. "We need to move. They'll track us come light. You can't ride, can't stay either." He was already checking his rifle. Every movement careful. 3 miles to Cumberland Pass. There's an old line shack. Defensible. Clara wanted to argue but knew he was right. She helped him stand, taking most of his weight. Mary led the horses, showing more awareness than she had before. The journey was agony. Boone breathing harsh. Clara's back screaming. The baby restless. But they made it, finding the promised shelter as sun climbed toward noon. It wasn't much. 1 room, thick log walls, narrow windows meant for rifles. But it was solid. Safe. Clara eased Boone onto a rickety cot. "Now what?" she asked. "Now we make a stand." He gestured weakly at the windows. "They want us bad enough, they'll come." But this place, Sarah and I sheltered here once. Storm caught us like it caught us. She said, he stopped, pain flickering across his features. What did she say? That it felt safe, like a place where good things might happen. His hand found hers. Maybe she was right. Clara squeezed gently. Rest now. Mary and I will keep watch. But rest wouldn't come easy. Riders appeared on the ridge before noon. The same raiders, plus reinforcements. They circled like wolves, testing approaches. How many bullets? Boone asked from the cot. Clara counted quickly. Maybe 20 between us. Not enough. Then we make them count. The first attack came at sunset. Clara and Mary fired carefully, making every shot matter. Boone dragged himself to a window, rifle braced on the sill. Together they held, but ammunition dwindled with each wave. Clara, Boone's voice was rough. If this goes bad, it won't. Listen to me. He caught her arm. If it goes bad, you take Mary and run. There's a trail out back, leads to... I said no. Clara knelt beside him. We survive together or not at all. That's what love means. His eyes filled. Damn stubborn woman. You're stubborn woman. The final assault came with full dark, raiders on all sides, bullets splintering wood. Clara's ammunition ran dry. Mary crouched by Boone, helping him aim his final shots. Then, through the chaos, hoofbeats, different rhythm, disciplined approach. Cavalry! Someone shouted outside. It's the goddamn cavalry! Blue uniforms poured over the ridge, led by a grizzled sergeant who looked annoyed at having his evening interrupted. The raiders scattered like quail, those who could still ride. Well now, the sergeant said, surveying the bullet-riddled shack. Looks like you folks have had some excitement. Clara laughed, high and slightly hysterical. You could say that. They were escorted to Fort Lyon, where an army doctor properly tended Boone's shoulder. Mary was taken in by the chaplain's wife, who recognized trauma when she saw it. She'll be cared for, the woman assured Clara. We've seen too many lost souls out here. Some find their way back. Clara stayed by Boone's bedside as he recovered. On the third day, he woke clear-eyed to find her reading one of the few books the fort boasted. Still here. Where else would I be? He studied her, hair falling loose, dress torn and travel-stained, beautiful beyond measure. Marry me. Clara nearly dropped the book. What? Marry me. Here, now, before we reach Colorado Springs. He struggled to sit up. I know it's soon. Know we've both got ghosts. But I also know I love you. Know I want to wake up seeing your face every morning for whatever mornings I've got left. Boone, I'm not asking you to replace Thomas in your heart. Not asking you to help me forget Sarah. I'm asking if two people who've learned how deep love can go might try again. Together. Clara set the book aside carefully. And the baby? Will be ours. My name, my protection, my love, if you'll allow it. His eyes were wet. I'll be honored to raise Thomas's child, to give it the father you both deserve. Oh, Boone. She was crying now. Hormones and exhaustion and joy all mingling. Yes, of course yes. He pulled her close with his good arm, kissing her soft and deep. Thank God. Thought I'd have to shoot more people to convince you. She laughed against his mouth. No more shooting. We've had enough violence for 3 lifetimes. Agreed. Nothing but peace from here on. They were married the next morning, the chaplain presiding while soldiers and their wives witnessed. Mary stood with Clara, smiling more each day as her mind slowly pieced itself together. She'd been taken by raiders years ago, memory fractured by trauma, but safety was teaching her to trust again. You saved me, Mary whispered as Clara adjusted her borrowed veil. Both of you. We saved each other, Clara corrected. That's what people do. They choose each other, over and over, until choosing becomes as natural as breathing. Boone waited at the makeshift altar, arm in a sling but standing straight. The locket still hung at his throat, catching morning light. But his eyes were all for Clara as she walked toward him. one hand on her belly where new life grew. "Ready for this?" the chaplain asked. "Been ready my whole life," Boone answered. "Just took a while to find the right woman." Clara took his hand, feeling the calluses and strength. "Then let's not waste any more time." The ceremony was simple, the vows traditional. But when Boone kissed his bride, the watching soldiers cheered like it was the finest wedding Denver had ever seen. "Hello, Mrs. Hartley," Boone murmured against her lips. "Hello, Mr. Hartley." Clara smiled through happy tears. "Ready to go home?" "Already there," he said, hand covering hers on her belly. "Already there." The town of Cedar Ridge barely deserved its name, a handful of weathered buildings clinging to the Colorado mountainside like stubborn weeds. But to Clara and Boone, arriving in the first green flush of spring, it looked like paradise. "That's it," Boone said, pointing to a cabin set back from the main street. "Bought it sight unseen from a miner heading back east. Hope it has a roof." It had a roof, barely. The walls stood true, but everything else needed work. Windows were boarded, the porch sagged, and something had made a nest in the chimney. Clara stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to her aching back, and laughed. "It's perfect." Boone looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Clara, it's a disaster. It's ours." She turned to him, eyes bright. "Our disaster, our home, our new beginning." The baby chose that moment to kick hard, making Clara gasp. She'd grown huge these last weeks, movement becoming more difficult each day. "Inside, now," Boone ordered, guiding her to a dusty chair. "Mary, can you start a fire?" Mary, who'd traveled with them from Fort Lyon, nodded eagerly. She'd bloomed under their care, mind slowly knitting back together. Not fully healed, might never be, but functional enough to help with daily tasks. She'd become like a sister to Clara, a daughter to Boone. They spent the next days making the cabin livable. Boone worked despite his healing shoulder, repairing roof and porch. Clara scrubbed years of grime from floors and walls. Nesting instinct in full force, Mary helped both, singing soft melodies she was beginning to remember. The townspeople watched with curiosity typical of small communities. A pregnant woman, her new husband, and a damaged girl made for interesting gossip. But when Banker Harrison tried to suggest Clara wasn't the type, they wanted settling here. Boone set him straight. "My wife is exactly the type this town needs," he said, voice carrying clear across the general store. "She's got spine enough for 10 men and heart enough for 20. Anyone has issue with her or our family can discuss it with me, personally." After that, the whispers stayed whispers. Clara woke one April morning to wetness and cramping. "Boone," she gasped. "It's time." The next hours blurred, pain and pressure. Boone's steady presence, Mary boiling water and fetching clean cloths. The town midwife had been summoned but lived miles away. "Can't wait," Clara panted. "Baby's coming now? Then we do this ourselves." Boone's voice was calm, but she saw terror in his eyes. "Mary, you ever helped with birthing?" I think so. Yes, on the farm, before." Mary straightened. "I remember." Between the three of them, they managed. Clara bore down when her body demanded, Boone supporting her, Mary offering remembered wisdom. And then, as dawn painted the mountains gold, a cry split the air. "A girl," Mary breathed. "Perfect little girl." Clara sobbed as Boone placed the baby on her chest. Tiny, wrinkled, absolutely beautiful. Dark hair like Thomas, but the shape of her mouth was all Clara. "Hope," Clara whispered. "Her name is Hope." Boone's own tears fell freely as he wrapped them both in his strong arms. "Hope Hartley, I like it. You don't mind that she's ours," he said firmly. "Blood doesn't make family. Choice does, and I choose her, just like I chose you." The midwife arrived to find them all crying together. Clara from joy and exhaustion. Boone from overwhelming love. Mary from memories of family lost and found again. "Well now," the woman said, surveying the scene. "Looks like you handled things just fine." News of the birth spread quickly. Within days, neighbor women arrived with food, advice, and gentle welcomes. The minister's wife brought tiny gowns. The blacksmith's family offered a cradle they'd outgrown. "See?" Clara told Boone as they watched Hope sleep in her new bed. "We're already part of this place. You did that," he said. "You have a way of making anywhere home." Life settled into rhythm. Boone found work guiding hunters and occasionally helping the sheriff track outlaws. His reputation had preceded him. Clara took in sewing. Her neat stitches soon in demand. Mary helped with everything, growing stronger daily. Summer brought challenges. Hope cried through hot nights, cutting teeth early. Clara's milk ran low during a drought week, sending Boone riding desperately to find a goat. Mary suffered nightmares, waking screaming about men and snow and darkness, but they weathered each storm together. Boone walked Hope through colicky nights, humming tunelessly until she settled. Clara found herbs to help Mary sleep peacefully. They shared work and worry, joy and sorrow, building family from devotion rather than blood. One evening, Clara found Boone on the porch, Hope sleeping against his chest while he watched the sunset. The locket still hung at his throat, but he wore it outside his shirt now. Acknowledgement rather than secret. "What are you thinking?" she asked, settling beside them. "How different life is from what I planned. Thought I'd die searching those mountains. Thought grief would eat me hollow." He kissed Hope's downy head. "Instead, I'm here, with you, with her, with Mary, more than I ever dreamed of having again. Do you still think of Sarah?" "Every day. No hesitation, no shame. But it doesn't hurt the same. She's part of who I was, who I am, but not who I'm becoming." He looked at Clara. "That's you and Hope and whatever other babies we're blessed with." Clara smiled. "Other babies? If you're willing. Hope needs brothers, sisters. House needs filling with laughter. I think that can be arranged." She leaned into him, careful of the sleeping baby. "Though perhaps we wait until this one's walking first." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge. Inside, Mary prepared dinner, her voice lifting in a hymn she'd remembered that morning. Simple domestic peace, hard-won and precious. "The locket," Clara said suddenly. "I've been thinking, when Hope's older, perhaps she'd like to have it, something beautiful from the past to carry forward." Boone's hand went to the silver chain. For a moment, Clara feared she'd overstepped. Then he smiled, sad but genuine. "Sarah would like that. She always said beautiful things should be used, not hidden." He met Clara's eyes. "But not yet. Someday, when I'm ready. When it feels right." "Of course, there's no hurry." "No," he agreed. "We have time now. All the time we need." Fall arrived with golden aspens and crisp air. Hope grew round and rosy, crawling everywhere, pulling herself up on furniture. Her first word was Ma, making Clara cry. Her second was Pa, reducing Boone to speechlessness. Mary had begun walking out with the minister's son, a gentle boy who saw past her scars to the sweet soul beneath. They made a careful courtship, chaperoned and proper. But Clara saw how they looked at each other. "She'll marry him," Clara predicted, watching them stroll past. "Good," Boone said. "She deserves her own happiness." "We all got what we deserved, didn't we, eventually?" "No," he pulled her close. "We got more, so much more." Winter came gentle that year, snow falling soft as feathers. They celebrated Hope's first Christmas with a tree Boone cut himself, decorated with strings of berries and Clara's paper stars. Mary gave Hope a rag doll she'd sewn. Boone gave Clara a rocking chair he'd carved in secret. Clara gave Boone a new shirt and the news that Hope would have a sibling come summer. "All ready." He spun her around, laughing. "Woman, you work fast." "Well, we did say we wanted to fill this house." That night, after Hope was asleep and Mary had retired to her small room, Clara and Boone sat by their fire. The locket caught light as he breathed, constant reminder of roads traveled and prices paid. I love you. Clara said simply. I love Thomas, will always carry him, but I love you with the woman I've become. Fuller, deeper, tested by fire and stronger for it. And I love you. Boone replied, not as replacement or second choice, but as partner, as the one who taught me that hearts can hold more than one love without breaking. Outside, snow continued falling, blanketing their small town in pristine white, but inside was warmth and light, the crackle of fire and promise of tomorrow. On the mantel, Sarah's map lay folded, not hidden but honored, part of the story that brought them here. Clara rose, holding out her hand. Come to bed, husband. Morning comes early with a baby in the house. He followed willingly, pausing to check the locks, bank the fire, peek at Hope sleeping peaceful in her cradle. Small acts of devotion, unremarkable except for how remarkable their ordinary life had become. As they settled into bed, Boone traced lazy circles on Clara's growing belly. Boy or girl, you think? Doesn't matter, Clara murmured, already drifting toward sleep. Either way, they'll be loved. Either way, they'll be ours. Ours, he agreed, the word holding all their journey, from loss to hope, from loneliness to family, from wilderness to home. The silver locket lay quiet against his chest, Sarah's memory at peace. Tomorrow it might pass to hope, becomes part of a new story, but tonight it simply rested, like everything in this small cabin, held safe by love that had room for both sorrow and joy, past and future, what was lost and what was found. In her cradle, Hope stirred and sighed, dreaming baby dreams. And in the bed their parents held each other close, no longer broken people seeking shelter, but whole souls who'd chosen to build something beautiful from the pieces. Spring would come again soon, bringing new life to the mountains. But for now, winter's peace was enough, a season of rest after storms weathered, a quiet celebration of survival transformed into thriving. The Hartley family slept sound in their cabin on the hill, proof that sometimes the longest roads lead to the sweetest homes. Thank you so much for joining us around the campfire tonight and listening to Clara and Boone's journey. I'd love to hear where you're listening from, whether you're driving through the plains, sitting by your own fireplace, or perhaps even somewhere in the Colorado mountains where our story took place. Please consider subscribing to Wild West Campfire for more tales of love, loss, and redemption in the American frontier. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts on Clara and Boone's story. Did their journey touch your heart as much as it touched mine? Until next time, partners, keep riding toward the sunset and remember, the longest trails often lead to the sweetest homes.